If you ever played Gorilla Tag alone, you might have gotten an unnerving feeling that something seems off. There's just something so out of place in this innocent game that gives players like you and I the creeps while playing it. And yet, despite everything the game has to offer, all the maps, cosmetics, and even the updates, Gorilla Tag is still an eerie game to this day. But why? Well, you see, I found these 4 unsettling aspects inside the game, and I guarantee that by the end of this video, both you and I might start to understand the bigger picture here. So join me as I try to figure out what makes Gorilla Tag so creepy. If you're like any other player, one of the first things that may pop in your mind regarding Gorilla Tag are its various maps that you can mess around in. And at first, it seems like there's nothing wrong with them. They're just common areas that feel like they're made for playing tag in. But recently, I noticed that something felt off-putting about them all. Something so unexpected that I was even shocked when I found about it while making this video. They all have some form of liminal spaces in them. So, what are these liminal spaces, you ask? Well, liminal spaces are basically areas that feel familiar, but uncanny at the same time. These areas are so close to feeling normal, but there's just something about their atmosphere that gives them their eerie feeling that we can't really point out. But you might be wondering, how does this relate to Gorilla Tag and its maps? Well, have you felt like something's odd about any of them? Say caves or even canyons, for example. Sure, they feel like playable maps, but it just seems like there's at least one odd thing about them that gives them their unnerving atmosphere. Maybe it's the off-putting dark spaces that contrast with the otherwise colorful environments. Maybe it's the small tight spaces that feel like they're closing in on you by the second. Whatever it is, I think we can all agree that these places can seem eerie by how they look sometimes. But what if I were to tell you that they also give this unwanted feeling through how they sound in game? Well, I'm not kidding. Sound is like a pretty big thing, so big to the point where hearing is considered to be one of our 5 senses, just like sight. But what if you were to ask someone what Gorilla Tag sounds like? I know it's a weird question, but I'm sure you're already thinking about the constant screaming and noisy sounds coming from little children playing in-game. And yeah, even if it's a bit annoying to deal with, it's what I think the game should sound like. Emphasis on should, because if you took away all that constant noise coming from different players, what we're left with is nothing, really. That's because deep down, Gorilla Tag is surprisingly quiet. And sure, some of y'all might point out how there's some random sound effects that play while you step on something, and sometimes some tunes would occasionally play on speakers across various maps. But other than that, there's absolutely nothing going on in the background. That's weird if you ask me. And not in a good way either. I'm expecting to hear the demonic screams of the last player alive, while everyone else shouts and rages in the background of these areas. But instead, it's silent. It feels wrong. Without that needed ambience, these places feel wrong. In fact, this whole game feels wrong to play while in complete silence when we're all used to other people being there. Which kinda reminds me of something I found out recently. Gorilla Tag is not meant to be a game to be alone in. It's made to be played with other people. And there's a good reason why that's the case. You see, while I was making this video, I was recommended a different video from Johnson called How Gorilla Tag Causes Illusions While Playing Alone. And in this video, he talked about a few points as to why the game felt disturbing to play while playing alone. But one thing that really caught my attention was him mentioning that Gorilla Tag is a social game, so everything feels more natural when you're playing with someone else. So while I was thinking about it for a bit, I quickly realized everything felt lonely in the game. No matter where you go, it always feels ominous without having someone else beside you. It just makes you wish that there were some sentient NPCs that you could talk to in-game, since in most cases, it's just you and the environment. And like we established before, the maps don't offer a lot in terms of bringing sentience into this virtual world. So we just end up in a state of unwanted loneliness in a game all about socializing and hanging out with fellow players. And because we don't want to be alone, our minds would try to help us by filling in the gaps for us. But while this might seem like a simple fix, it actually causes some serious problems for us, since we may eventually get the small feeling that we weren't alone this whole time. Yup, that's right, we're talking about ghosts. You might have heard about a few of them over the years. PBBB, Statue, J3BU, Daisy09, etc. But for any of you who's been living under a rock, they're just entities that try to scare players across various lobbies. Although that probably doesn't sound creepy to some of y'all, they were the threat back in the day. With all their unnatural movement and eerie sounds, I think it was obvious that these things were going to be at least a little unnerving whenever you ran into one. But here's the thing, they aren't real. And a lot of the videos you see about ghosts or most likely fake. Yet, despite that fact, I've noticed that people still get paranoid about them to this day. Even if the ghosts don't exist, even if we are completely alone, we still get that lurking feeling that something or someone is watching us. And if that isn't creepy, then I don't know what is. Gorilla Tag has always been one of my favorite VR games. With its expansive worlds and mechanics, our experiences in this little monkey game end up becoming more impactful than we first realized. But with that being said, the game still gives me an immersive, yet creepy vibe whenever I get onto the game to this day. Whether or not that was intentional on the developer's part, I don't mind being weirded out by this game from time to time. It's something that adds to the already thrilling experience of rejecting humanity and becoming monkey. And that alone makes this game a little more special to me and many other players out there. Thanks for watching.